This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. He'll have me while the singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for June 7th, 2022. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling podcast feed or on our own dedicated podcast feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. If you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or recurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. It's a busy week. It's Mike. I'm with Case as always. Case, how are you?
I'm good. Under normal circumstances, I think we'd carve out a half hour and talk about the Rolling Stone list that was just released of the top 200 hip-hop albums of all time. Obviously, when you think hip-hop, you think Case Lowe and Mike Spears, and we are the kind of guys that would tackle that sort of thing. But unfortunately, I think we have too much Dragon Gate to talk about this week.
It seems like we have too much Dragon Gate, and it's a shame because I did finally catch up with Barry last night.
Oh my god, no. Oh my god.
So Blockheads might... eventually, we will do Blockheads one way or another, but...
No. Barry Season 3 is beyond fucked, and I normally don't cuss on this show in the first hour, but that's the only logical way I can describe it. And I was talking to a coworker about this show, somebody who's never seen it, and I was explaining to them, I was in from season 1, episode 1, and after the first season, I said, I don't want this show to be renewed. There's no way they can top what they did in season 1. And then they did season 2, and they blew season 1 out of the water. And so for season 3, all bets were off. I was fully expecting anything. And it's not necessarily, I don't think the right word is cliffhanger, but every episode, there is a turn that I do not see coming. And every time at the end of every episode, Sunday evenings, my jaw is on the floor. Mike, have you read what Bill Hader has said about the season finale that's coming up this week?
No, I haven't, because it's just been something that I've not stuck with it every week. I like carving out an hour for Barry, so I get back to back and I can kind of synthesize about what happened, because I feel like the season you kind of do need to take a step back, and I know we've talked about it, but I have not seen it, because they do 8-episode seasons. Next episode is the finale for this one, and I don't know where they go to for here at this point. No storyline is coming close to wrapping up, other than the fact that Albert Wen is the only person who actually understands what's going on here.
So I will say this, and I do not think it's a spoiler. I apologize if this gives too much away. But Bill Hader said in an interview this week that the guy that does color correction on Barry can normally knock out an episode in an entire day. And he told Bill Hader that it took him multiple days to color correct this episode.
That's insane.
Because he found it to be so emotionally draining. And that when Bill Hader showed the season finale to the cast members, that some of them were like, yo, this is fucked up. The place you took us to in this episode is fucked up. So
which is wild, Case, because they've pretty much brought everyone low leading into the finale. The only person who I would say is on somewhat of a mild upward trajectory is Gene.
Yes, Gene is on an upward trajectory, and I think I'm so intrigued because the last episode, leaves off with Fuchs in the interrogation room, and his character can swing either way, because I don't know where his loyalty lies with Barry at this point, because you could make an argument that he's on the upward trajectory as well, because he's finally got a chance to get one over on Barry, but it also seemed like from that interrogation that he was loyal to him to a degree. So if maybe he's at a neutral playing field, Gene is on the upswing, and everybody else in this show, Gene and Darcy Carden are on the upswings, and everybody
Darcy
else
is winning.
Oh my
Darcy has
God.
won the show.
Oh, Darcy Carden. If she wasn't already married, I would make a move. She is wife material personified. Her character is just incredible. And then everybody else in this show is just
Their life sucks.
the pit of hell, the depths of humanity, rock bottom. They could not be doing any worse. It is really, other than The Sopranos and maybe that season of Louis where he was gunning for the Late Show job, to me, this is the best TV I've ever seen. I think that highly of it. And I am not a movie guy by any means. My favorite movies are Boys in the Hood and Monsters, Inc. and 40-Year-Old Virgin. But I am a TV guy, and I think Barry is as good of TV as I've ever seen.
I stopped answering favorite movie questions 10 years ago, okay?
Well, that's because it's probably some European film that I haven't seen.
Well, it's because I don't have one. and they always ask someone who has like any sort of like film studies background. It's like, oh, so what's your favorite movie? Recommend me. I'm like, I never want to do that because everyone has their own unique palette and tastes. But so when people like, well, whenever like you have to give me one, I say Big Lebowski and let us move on.
Yeah, that's me with Boys in the Hood, which I've been going on a few dates with this one girl, and I mentioned that to her because she's a big film person, and not expecting her to have seen Boys in the Hood, but then she had, and we had a nice conversation about it, which was nice. That was a big win for me.
Hey, I mean, you sometimes you have to see if people know like 90s films like that, like because like for I would say that with like our age difference and the generation difference, I would say that like that was like the biggest thing I would experience whenever I would do a little bit of student teaching was like, wow, okay, undergrads don't know a thing about like just like it was like they heard of Pulp Fiction but not of Reservoir Dogs. It was like not an understanding of the 90s outside of the major studio system.
Yeah, I of course am the wrong person to ask because my entire life I've said, okay, well, the internet has everything, so I might as well try and watch everything. I might as well consume as much information as humanly possible. But I have learned that the people of my generation don't necessarily see eye to eye with me on that. I just blew somebody's mind at work because I not only had heard of the band Camper Van Beethoven, but I knew a lot about Camper Van Beethoven because I liked them a lot. And this is not the episode to get into Cracker's Kerosene Hat and how that is one of the best albums of the 90s, but it is. It just objectively isn't. Low is as good of an alt-rock single as there's ever been. And me going on this diatribe in a meeting a few weeks ago really impressed like a higher up that I work with. He was like, God, Case, I didn't know 23-year-olds knew about Camper Van Beethoven. And I was like, well, they don't, but I'm built different. I do.
And if there's one thing that we've learned, and I would say that the higher up needs to learn, is that Case Low is built different.
I'm built different. I'm built different, much like Drangi, much like Mochizuki Jr., who we'll talk about in just a little bit. And there's a lot of things to look on over this past week in the Dragon system and go, God, they are built different. I mean, what you said last week about how there is so much going wrong in wrestling right now, it is amazing that Dragon Gate is doing so much right. I think this was the showcase for that theory, this King of Gate finale, the Toryumon reunion show, and even the Kobe Sambo Hall show, the three shows that we're going to talk about today. It was, there were no match of the year contenders. I don't even know if I had a 4-star match on any of these shows, but oh my God, from start to finish were these shows not only fun to watch, they were newsworthy, they were important. And they are the kind of thing that I can look back and go, yep, that's why I like Dragon Gate. These shows right here. Really good stuff.
Yeah, I do have 4-star matches that we'll get into with it. But because of how much to talk about, like, we are going to do this kind of by topic. And we will cover, throughout this episode of the program, we will cover the 6-2 King of Gate finals. We'll cover the 6-3 Toryumon Gym Toryumon reunion Volume 2, and then as Case mentioned, the Kobe Sambo Hall show from this Sunday. But the big league topic, and I have to say, okay, so this is something that as soon as we all got dialed in to, and as soon as Ada dropped out of the tournament, it felt really clear to me. But we have a first-time winner of King of Gate. Lek Barasan presented King of Gate 2022 to determine Dragon Gate's #1 champion. And at the end of June 2nd, Tokyo Korakuen Hall show, it was Yuki Yoshioka who won King of Gate. And he's already made his claim for getting the next Dream Gate shot, as we saw in Kobe. So it's full speed ahead for Yuki Yoshioka, it feels like. It's his summer, it might be.
And well deserved. You know, my one prediction that I was 100% locked in on going into King of Gate, because it seemed like between Eita and Kota Menorah and Yuki Yoshioka, who some people had pointed out before the tournament had started, hey, he might be a guy, and KZ as well. It seemed like there were a lot of overall winners that were possible, but the one thing that I was 100% locked in on was that Yuki Yoshioka was going to defeat Yamato in the first round of the tournament, which he did. And from there, I wasn't quite sure where we were going to go. I could have seen Yoshioka losing to Diamante. I could have seen him losing to Shun. Neither of those results would have surprised me. In the end, he went over on both guys. His tournament, if you zoom out and look at it as a whole, he defeated Yamato on the May 11th Korakuen Hall show. I went 4 1/4 on that. He defeated UT on the May 24th house show in Yamagata. I went 3 3/4 on that. He defeated Diamante on the May 29th Osaka #2 show, and I went 4 1/2 stars on that. And then he defeated both Shun Skywalker in the semifinals and Kota Menorah in the finals of the tournament on the June 2nd Korakuen Hall show. I gave the Shun Skywalker match 3 1/2, and the finals of the tournament 3 3/4. Not only was Yoshioka the winner of the tournament, but to me, undoubtedly the MVP of King of Gate 2022.
So I grabbed my old notebook. I was 4 1/4 on against Yamato. I had a second go in Kobe. I had him, or not Kobe, in Osaka versus Diamante. I had him at 4 1/2, and that was my match of the tournament up until that point. And then I had him at 4 flat against Shun Skywalker, and I had him at 4 1/2 against Kota Menorah. I was astounded by him this tournament. He did not have a match in my books below 4 stars. The first time I can remember anyone in Dragon Gate having this sort of a tournament performance. And at least for me, I was so dead set on Eita. It just felt like that everything was in the air, and it just made sense that he didn't really get a true run. But how to really make up for it? Well, your biggest star at this point, your biggest merch mover, well, you make him King of Gate, and when everything opens up this summer, as it's slowly moving to, he gets that. So that was my logic there. But then after that, if I wasn't so dead set on Eita, I probably would have taken Yuki Yoshioka at least to the finals case. It just felt like this because he's a bigger guy. He has the look. He's a decent promo, and we've known pretty much since day one how nails he is in the ring. So just an unmitigated success for him. I think it's something that, with D Courage being the main characters of Dragon Gate really for the first half of 2022, I don't want to say it was tipping a hand in a way, but Dragon Gate does have certain things that if you read the tea leaves, I feel like you have a little bit more of a heads up, or you anticipate it a little bit better. And that's why, like, I never bought into the KZ hype for this year. It just seemed completely implausible. But if you saw the tea leaves, I felt like that Yuki Yoshioka had probably the most positive portents for this tournament, and it played out right into his hand.
Well, that's the thing with Yoshioka, is that although neither of us initially picked him to win the tournament, this win is by no means a surprise. He essentially had the Kota Menorah push of last year in King of Gate, but he ended up winning the tournament instead of losing in the finals. And it's well-deserved for Yoshioka. I cut out time last week, and I talked about how I don't think people up until now have realized just how good he is, because he was constantly living in the shadow of Ben-K and of Shun Skywalker, and then he went away, and then he came back and was under a mask for a year, so we really went 2 full years without Yuki Yoshioka as an entity, in what he has done this year, arguably the first quarter of the year and the first quarter of D-Courage really went to Dragon Dia. He was the double champion. He had the match with Fujiwara. He was the focus of this group. But would you say that from May 11th of this year through, as we're recording this, June 7th of this year, over this past month, Yuki Yoshioka has increased his standing in the eyes of the Dragon Gate fan?
Oh, easily.
Yes.
I would say that I don't think he is a capital G guy at this point, but they've set down the groundwork for him to become that. Like, he is just undoubtedly raised his station in the promotion, in my mind.
It's going to be an interesting few months, because if you look back at some of the more recent King of Gate winners, let's cross out 2017 and that T-Hawk win from existence, but 2018 Masato Yoshino wins, 2019 Ben K wins, 2020 Eito wins, 2021 KZ wins. Those are all guys with a capital G. Weirdly, you can make the argument that Ben K is not a guy anymore. That's a discussion we might get into on this podcast. But at the time of them winning the tournament, those were guys with a capital G. I would say that KZ winning arguably cemented his status as a guy with a capital G. Maybe he was there a little bit before that. But Yoshioka has the least stature of any of the last 5 King of Gate winners, but he has that momentum that those guys had. And he's now in a position to where, let's say he has a great weekend in Fukuoka this weekend, and then he goes on to Kobe World and he has a great match there, because realistically he could leave Kobe World as the Open the Dream Gate champion, and it wouldn't shock me. And I also think he would be deserving of that position. His acceleration is or his rise to the top rather is going to be very accelerated, and I fully believe that he's capable of handling that top spot. Not for the ace run. This isn't a Yamato Dreamgate win like it was in 2016. This isn't even a Ben K in 2019 Dreamgate win. But Yoshioka winning the title in 2022 is very feasible and very realistic, and something that I think he could handle a 4 to 5 month reign atop the company.
And if you want to take a step back and look at the company in a macro sense, and it's one of those kind of big to-dos right now. The company is at a place right now where they did 2,300 over 2 days in Cork, and 1,000 of that was for this tournament. They will be Are there questions about Yuki Yoshioka up top? Yes. Yuki has a lot of questions about it. That he's completely unproven. But is it something where the company is in a healthy space and in a position where they can try this with him? Whereas I would say that nearly every other conglomerate or non-conglomerate and some conglomerate promotions really can't afford to take a test right here. Yeah, Dragon Gate has put themselves in a situation where they could give the ball to Yuki Yoshioka and see where he goes with it. And it's something that the company's been high on him for a long time, guys. Like, I remember us talking with Jay and other people around the company that they were all pretty much at one point saying, like, yeah, no, he's going to be a star. We just kind of have to give him some time. And they were just waiting for the right time to pull the trigger, and it so happened to be May and June of 2022. And it's something where I've seen enough of him and Kai in the Kobe preview that I'm not already dashing my expectations like I did the Yoshida match, but they've cleared the runway for Yuki Yoshioka, and it's something that when we get into the back half of the year, it'll be interesting to see how the other stuff is set up around the promotion to support him, because that's something that I think we can see, that we can say that with first-time champions that in Dragon Gate there are some struggles that could happen. But I guess the big question I want to ask you about this is, so it's June 7th as we're recording this. Kobe World's at the end of July. What percentage chance to give Yuki Yoshioka to win the Dream Gate at Kobe World Kinnan Hall?
Okay, as of the time we're recording this, which means that we've seen one Yoshioka versus Kai preview tag match, a road to Kobe World, if you will. That's an interesting question. This will ebb and flow. This will change over the past year. Despite me being really locked into Dragon Gate, I have not had a good feel for the Dream Gate booking, going back to December when I said, well, we'll record an emergency podcast if Kai wins the title, and oh boy, did Kai call our bluff. I think right now, as of the time we're recording this, I've got to go 60-40 Kai.
60
I think Kai's still the favorite.
Really?
Yes. Now, again, that will change. I think we'll get to a point, maybe even next week, where I'm 50-50. I think going into that match, I could certainly see myself seeing Yoshioka as the favorite, but I am just not sure that Yoshioka is the guy to beat Kai. You would know better than me off the top of your head. Can you remember how many heels have won the main event of Kobe World? Because that's something Dragon Gate doesn't like to do. I'm not sure if it's ever happened, but if it has, you would be the guy to know.
If you were wondering why I said really, that's why I said really.
Exactly.
2008 Shingo. That's it.
Is it crazy to say 50-50? Are you just so in favor of Yoshioka at this point?
I think you just have to give him the shot. I mean, you've laid down all the groundwork. It would be really just it would just be some really short-sighted logic to be like, oh, we don't think you're ready, and pull the football up. Like, we've seen how that's harmed people's careers in this company. I think you have to. Like, if I were to put a percentage on it, I'm 60-40 Yuki Yoshioka at this point, but I think you kind of have to.
All right, well, I'm going to be 60-40 Kai, and we'll check in even next week after the Fukuoka shows and see where we're at.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that'll be a fun thing to track with this. It's just something that even in 2008 with Shingo, he turned face very quickly after, because that was the vacated title that Shima had to give up, and Shingo was a heel, and they don't like having heel champions coming out of Kobe World very often. Looking at the rest of this Korakuen card case, we had just a lot of everything happening. They announced leading off that they were going to do the Second Chance Dragon Scramble elimination battle royal to decide the fourth single semifinal winner. Menorah sacrificed himself to let Menorah win, and outside of really one other big thing, this was just felt kind of like a standard, very good Dragon Gate Korakuen show.
Okay, so first of all, let me talk about this Battle Royal. The King of Gate 2022 Second Chance 28 entrant Dragon Scramble Battle Royal was a work of art. This match accomplished so much in terms of capping off some of these King of Gate stories, enhancing the Menorah-Minorita relationship, and also the Strong Machine J high-end story, which concluded later in this night. This was one of those matches that very easily could have been, all right, come in, let me throw you over the top rope, come in, let me throw you over the top rope, come in, let me throw you over the top rope. This match set the tone for the rest of the show. This was such an effective and efficient battle royal, and I thought it was so much fun. So job well done. I would love to know who laid this match out, and God forbid I speculate on who's running things backstage on Dragon Gate for the record, and we'll talk about this more with the Open Triangle Gate Championship. Until a specific source of ours reaches out to us and confirms what Dave Meltzer said in the Wrestling Observer newsletter this past week, I disagree with Dave's reporting, and I believe I have the track record to say that I disagree with Dave's reporting. I don't know who he's talking to, but I have heard stuff that does not line up with what he does. And quite frankly, if you look at the Observer over the past 4 or 5 years, especially the Big Show reports, look at Dave's writing and then go back and read my reviews over at voicesofwrestling.com. If I am not directly giving Dave notes, Dave is curbing notes for me. I am more plugged into this promotion than he is. And I'd be more than happy to admit that I'm wrong, but until a specific source of ours reaches out and says that what is in the Observer, he can verify, I do not agree with Dave's reporting. We will circle back to this if it is appropriate, but I stand by what we said a week ago. Anyways. No, go ahead. I'll let you talk here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I stand by what we said 2 weeks ago. I would not have ran the story. It's still something that I question any sort of vetting that the Wrestling Observer, now the entire website, has done towards this. And as I said, I stand by my reporting. And until I hear otherwise, I think that they're way out to lunch on this.
In the same way, and it's not to the extreme degree, but in the same way that Sean Ross Sapp is really plugged into AEW, Joe Lanza is really plugged into Noah New Japan, we are the source for Dragon Gate, and what we heard from multiple people And I will reemphasize that because from some reason, I feel like we didn't make ourselves clear enough 2 weeks ago. From what we heard from multiple sources, I do not believe what Brian Alvarez said. I certainly don't trust the source that Brian Alvarez got his information from. And it sounds like Dave is relying on the same source, someone who I do not agree with. So, again, I would be more than happy to enter a retraction if that needs to take place. It does me no personal nor professional good to deny the fact that Nozawa would be helping in Dragon Gate booking. I don't care one way or another, but I do want to be sure that I am conveying the information that I believe, and right now I do not believe Dave's reporting. Again, if information comes across my feed, I would be more than happy to say that I'm wrong. It does me, again, no harm nor any good to accept the fact that Nozawa has a helping hand in booking. But for now, I stand by what we said 2 weeks ago. But anyways, the Dragon Scramble Battle Royal was phenomenal. And oddly enough, maybe this goes to our point, I think this King of Gate show, even more so than the Toryumon reunion, this June 2nd King of Gate finale show felt like I was watching a Toryumon show from 2002. The pacing of it, the match lengths, the angles, all felt like vintage Ultimo, which makes sense given, what we've heard and what has been said on this podcast by Jay of Ultimo's growing creative influence. Obviously, he designed the La Estrella character. He is patterning Dragon Dia after Yuto, what's his name? I just forgot his name. It is Yuto Horigami, the Japanese professional skateboarder who won the gold medal in Skateboarding Street Olympics last year. That is what Dragon Dia is currently based off of. There's a lot of Ultimo Dragon fingerprints in this promotion right now, which again makes the Nozawa stuff a little harder to believe because this show felt like social dance era Toryumon, and that has, I think good and bad elements to it. It is so detached right now from, say, 2011 Dragon Gate. Would you be in agreement with me, Mike, that this promotion feels so much more like 2002 Toryumon than it does 2011 Dragon Gate?
I would say that this feels that 2022 Dragon Gate feels as much like a Toryumon promotion as it has any time in its since 2004.
Yes, completely agreed. It was Joe Gagne who pointed this out, and I'm glad that he did, where all told, there was barely an hour of wrestling on this show, but this was almost a 3-hour show given the amount of promos and angles that took place. And again, if you're looking at this, if Dragon Gate has been your source of great wrestling for the past, 4 or 5 years, decade, however long, and you sit down and you expect to see a 4.25 star match here and a 4.5 star match here, this is not that promotion right now. But this is, especially for someone like myself who hasn't enjoyed Dynamite lately, this is like the best wrestling TV show there is right now. These Dragon Gate Cork and Hall shows that are loaded with angles and are really fast paced. There's a lot of different things happening. I really like this show. Now, I did not like everything on this show, and I specifically want to get your thoughts on this Kota Menorah versus Shuji Kondo match. I wrote about it in my review. I'll reemphasize my thoughts in just a second, but I want to hear yours first. Mike, what did you think of this semifinals match?
Well, they already, through the Dragon Scramble case, laid out, and we had even more evidence afterwards at the Toryumon reunion. Gold class are tweeners now. And this was a tweener match where basically Menorah cost Kondo the match, and I felt like that Kota Menorah was playing much more heavy heel than he ever really has before leading up to this. Like, was I bummed that Shuji Kondo's miracle run ended here? Yeah, but as soon as and I don't know if this is a positive or a negative case, I sniffed out what was happening with all the Dragon system I've watched through over the years very quickly. And I was like, all right, I don't think that Kondo is going to get past this. And 6 minutes and it being mainly around Menorah and then Kota Menorah faking that he was hurt from the Dragon Scramble underlined that point a couple times for me.
Here's the thing about Gold Class, and I was going to bring this up at some point. I'm glad you brought it up here. I think Gold Class are tweeners, if not full-blown heels. Because if they line up against Vibes or against High End, they are going to be heels. Obviously, if they line up against Z-Brats, that's where you see them slide into a babyface role. But Gold Class against D-Courage or M3K or Peros, that is a heel unit, and that is something that I've seen a lot of conjecture on the Japanese accounts that I follow, which again, very small sample size. I don't want it to speak for the entire fan base, but there's a lot of comments of, oh, there's 3 heel units in Dragon Gate right now. There's obviously Z-Brats, there's Paris Del Mal, depending on who they're up against, and there's Gold Class. And in this Menorah-Minorita relationship, which I love, and I think this unit is terrific, and I'm so glad they've gone in this direction with Menorah as the spotlight. But these are guys who in March to me came across like baby faces and now come across like uber heels. And I think I like this incarnation of Gold Class a little bit less than I did during their launch, but still this is a unit that is firing on all cylinders for me. But I mean, I don't know, to me they're almost just a full-blown heel unit at this point.
Heels in the way that Naruki Doi heel persona kind of became the lovable jackass towards the end of it. But the thing is that Ishida doesn't show that edge whatsoever, and Kota Minoura I don't know what Ultimo was watching to think that Kota Minoura just needs to be an airhead, but I don't know how that works with this. I guess I kind of look like this, and we'll talk more about M3K in a bit, but it's something where maybe you have so many, you kind of have like a little bit of a babyface army going on right now that helps even it out, but it's a lot of weight put on Natural Vibes, because Natural Vibes in a lot of different ways is like is the super face unit, and that's something that I did not anticipate when Gold Class came around. I did not anticipate. I thought Gold Class was out here eating High-End's lunch and becoming the new super face unit after this, but we've kind of seen over the 2 months or the 3 months really since High-End has been official that's not really the case, and it'll be something that's going to be real interesting going forward, because I still think we have enough people that they need to get a 5th unit out there that's not something just to support up Mochizuki Jr.
And at the end of the day, whether you align Gold Class as, again, this kind of floating tweeter unit, heel unit, that doesn't really matter. But it is important to note that, hey, this is a unit that is drawing heel reactions. There's people in Japan that go, God, Coach Menorah is a heel right now. This is very strange. But yes, to your point, and I guess we can transition into the beauty that is Natural Vibes. They are the superface unit right now. And in my heart, in my brain, in my eyeballs, in my soul, Natural Vibes is the biggest babyface unit there's ever been. I cannot believe, as we sit here in June of 2022, this unit that I hated in 2018, that I loathe the return of in 2021, that I thought maybe it's a ruse, maybe KZ's going heel. There's no way that they are doing Natural Vibes again. They've never just done a unit again like this without some major rebranding, whether it's, World 1 to World 1 International or something like that. Nope, this is just Natural Vibes. And this unit of KZ, Big Boss Shimizu, UT, Jackie Funky Kamei, Jason Lee, and now Strong Machine J, biggest babyface unit in wrestling. I can't believe how much I love these guys. And why did no one tell me that Strong Machine J is a world-class breakdancer?
Case, how many years have been calling for Strong Machine J to do something different?
Oh my God! This
has been everything I've been wanting out of Strong Machine J since like the first time his shoulder was acting up and he came back. Before
it's been a 3-year battle, because my journey with Strong Machine J has been a long one, because in April of 2019 he debuted, and I said, I'll be damned, that might have been the single greatest debut match I've ever seen. And then by July of that year, when the Strong Machines won the Triangle Gate belts at Kobe World, I said, okay, I've seen enough of this. I am ready for something new. And even 6 months ago, I was questioning, I don't know if there's something new. Like, we're all rooting for this guy. He's clearly well liked. We know people that know him that say he's the man. This guy, we want him to be a success because he is such a nice guy. And that's great, but nice guys don't always equal good professional wrestlers. And I just wasn't sure that he was going to get there. But Mike Spears, was I right or was I right a few months ago when I said, pay attention to Strong Machine J? This guy is figuring it out, and he's still not all there, but oh my God, I'm as bullish on him as I am anyone in Dragon Gate right now, because this guy, we are watching someone in real time, week by week, month by month, show by show, figure out who he is. And that is so exciting when we watched him struggle for 2.5 years.
And it's something that now, in a way, it's hard to say because he's masked and he has like the covered in the eye ports. But don't you see the confidence in him already, Case? Can't you already like tell that this guy is like yeah, Strong Machine J, of course, is his dad, Japanese wrestling legend, Super Strong Machine. Like you're doing what you need to do to like be like show like proper deference, and you know the Strong Machine J or Super Strong Machine might actually have been a gimmick that the Dragon Gate fan base would be well aware of, that you could actually run with that. But it's something that like he was being his dad, and it was something that frustrated me for so long, Case. So when you said buy into him, I was like, I've been down this road too much with this guy. I felt like he was just going to always be just be Strong Machine J, the son of Super Strong Machine. And there's a role for that in Japanese wrestling. Like we've seen second generation wrestlers get that kind of role before. But this, like him, first, like the breakdancing, and then second, like just his body language. You could tell that this is such a slam dunk for him. And the thing I'm really excited about is we've seen the green mask. We've seen his jacket now. I want to see his new gear. If he's going to be a new man, he's got to drop the half singlet, you know, leave your dad in the past, man.
Well, I think the half singlet is okay. I would like to see a little bit of pizzazz added to it. I would like to see that natural vibes brush, a coat of paint rather, put on that singlet. But I think this is his look because it's a distinct look. And the one thing that I will always say about Dragon Gate, and I don't remember who said this, I wish I could credit them. It was, oddly enough, someone on the Pro Wrestling Only forum who is not a fan of Dragon Gate, who has watched very little of it. But that person said, the thing that I find so impressive is that this is a promotion based entirely off of units and guys wearing the same colors, and yet everybody looks different. And Strong Machine J has a different look from anybody else in Vibes. So I would like to see him keep the half singlet, but, you know, spice it up a little bit, baby. You're in Natural Vibes now.
Yeah, just go get the Rasta paint and like he could get some piping on it, like
Exactly.
Unlike Ishin, who somehow whomever it is in Kobe found the old stencil for Shingo Takagi's old single and decided to revive that. Did you notice that?
I did. That's a very good pull. You're exactly right.
Did that thought go through your mind, Case? Because that went through my mind when I saw Ishin's new singlet. As soon as I was like, did they just like use the stencil they had for Shingo? Because it doesn't fit him exactly either. So it's almost like they gave him one of Shingo's singlets and they just put pink over the red or yellow.
Yeah, he's the only guy in Dragon Gate history to ever take a step back with his apparel, because all of these guys kind of gradually as they progress, they look better and better and better. And Ishin weirdly took a step backwards here. But as for Strong Machine J, you're exactly right. The way that he carries himself is different. And that was what I picked up on more than anything. I don't want to claim to be Bill Simmons' body language doctor, but around February, March, I started going, God, he's got a pep in his step that he did not have in the fall. This is a guy who, whether he was told good news or whether there was confidence instilled in him by his own will, there was something there that he figured out. And I think it's going to be a really interesting experiment. I would challenge the listeners of the show, if you're looking for something to watch this week, go back to December of 2019. I believe it's that final Cork and Hall show of the year. There was that Ben K versus Strong Machine J singles match in Cork and Hall. And by all accounts, people in the building that we talked to said that match was a disappointment. Those guys wanted that match to be better, and that match fell flat. And really, Strong Machine J wasn't the same after that. He became a Triangle Gate champion for a very, very short period of time. COVID hit, he got hurt, and then he got stuck on that hamster wheel. And what we see now, just to compare that match, December of 2019, to what he is now, might as well be a different human. And it's great to see. I'm so glad that this guy is figuring it out. Natural Vibes for me right now is they're my unit, and I never would have thought that. I mean, if I was going to a Dragon Gate show tomorrow, for as much as I like D Courage and Z-Brats, guys and Z-Brats, I think I'm a Natural Vibes stan. Now, I might be an M3K stan, but we'll get to that. But Natural Vibes is the unit right now. They feel like Dragon Gate personified, And that's, to me, I don't have any qualms, any questions, any concerns about them being the super face unit, because when I think about what this company is, right now it's Natural Vibes.
Yeah, and it's something that it feels even more so, I would say, now that they have a full six. They've restocked. It only took them a month to restock from Dead or Alive case. Like, Yamato, man, you really have dropped the ball a lot with high end. I mean, the Natural Vibes was low. Like, I mean, they lost Genki and Susumu, and now they've retooled, and I think unquestionably the strongest unit right now in Dragon Gate, and probably outside of the Generation War, one of the strongest units we've had dating back to like original Maximum.
It is crazy to think that Gold Class swooped in, 8 high ends launch, and then turn heel. And high end is they just have nothing to live for. They are just ruined.
But Case, aren't you team high end? Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I mean, look, the unit, I think, has transitioned from really at times I thought last year being offensively bad to now they just exist. But I guess this is ultimately the difference between Dragon Gate in 2022 and Dragon Gate in 2018 is that high end, which just feels like a different version of Tri Vanguard, was responsible for leading the promotion at that time, and they had a heel unit that I thought was heavily flawed. Natural Vibes, to go back to that, wasn't what they were, and Maximum was this work rate unit, but even they, between Kotoka's injuries and Yoshino's injuries and getting that off the ground, that had its lumps. Thank God this company doesn't have to rely on high end to be the one leading the charge forward. They have a great heel unit. They have Natural Vibes. They have D-Courage. They have M3K. High end is far and away in last place in terms of my enjoyment, but high end does not actively hurt this company, which is a wonderful position to be in, given that it's Yamato and Dragon Kid and Ben K. Realistically, those should be the guys first and foremost leading the charge, but thank God we're in a position where they don't have to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then looking at the rest of this King of Gate finals, we'll talk about one of the other bigger events because it more pertains to the Toryumon reunion. I think like the thing that really like struck me about this and why you said it was like the 2002 feeling was, and going back to the Dragon Scramble, like, did you notice that Ryo Saito was like standing like right past the entranceway with like a notepad figuring out the card or acting like he was figuring out the card during the Dragon Scramble?
It's such a good gimmick. It's so good.
You're doing great. You're doing great, Ryo Saito.
I don't know if he is or not. We'll talk about the Triangle Gate situation in a second. Saito, he had to, he fired up his Wrestle Universe this morning, sitting in his home, and he's just sweating watching Peros Del Mal wrestle Stinger, which is a tough position for any human to be in. So Ryo Saito, we'll talk about him in just a little bit, but I love the way they handled the air quotes on the fly booking of this show, and then the air quotes on the fly booking of the Toryumon reunion show with Saito booking Ultimo Dragon in a singles match and him going, not going to work for me, brother. There was some really good stuff there. Closing out on the King of Gate finale, because we'll talk about Naruki Doi's baseball team and we'll talk about Dragon Dia versus Don Fuji when we get to that reunion show. But the finals of this tournament, Yoshioka versus Menorah, I went 3 3/4 on it. I believe you said you were at 4 1/4.
No, brother, I was at 4.5. I love
4.5. All right.
I love this business.
Walk me through this business. Talk about this match because it did not hit for me as high as it did for you.
It was something that like they built up Yuki's neck in the semifinal. Like that was what Shun Skywalker was. And it was nice seeing an edge from Kota Minoru playing although in the semifinal it was all shenanigans. Menorah wasn't even out for the final. So it was more of a serious match there. We got a frickin' bloody X during this match. And it just kind of like really was getting to a point where like they were up on the turnbuckle and they had some really sick shots on it, and the huge pop that the crowd got for the R301 kick out leading into the final stretch, like the last like 5 minutes of this, like the kick out of the Darkness Buster, the kick out of the Inferno, and then just he went halfway across the ring on that final frog splash to win the match. Guys, it was something that like I know UT is my favorite wrestler to watch in Dragon Gate, but it was something like taking a step back and I'm like, I don't think I appreciate how good Yuki Yoshioka is. And that's kind of what this was here. And it was just really fascinating to watch this match that you have two guys that, I mean, were basically what you would consider young boys all before COVID. And then they become adult wrestlers in COVID and they put on a match like this that I just thought they really kind of tapped into something with Yuki Yoshioka. And he really showed why he was the man of the tournament, why he had 5 straight 4-star matches in a tournament for me, and why they had such confidence having such an untested commodity be at the forefront leading into Kobe World Cannon Hall.
Let me put a pin in that. I realized as you were talking, I never got your thoughts on the execution of Menorah versus Kondo. Real quick, 30 seconds or less. What did you think of that match?
I thought it was really smart work.
Okay. I saw the story they were trying to tell, and I didn't I was very thrown off by Menorah selling, and then I saw the end game was, oh, okay, he was bluffing, but it didn't work for me. The main event, boy, did that story get across, and boy, did I think Yoshioka looked like a world beater. It is just a matter of I did not like the match as much as you did, but still very, very solid.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. It's just, it's also something that strikes me about a reason why I'm not as high on Kota Menorah as others' case, and that is the fact that he names everything after Apex Legends, and it's the most Zoomer shit possible. And as a millennial, I have to stand against that. Support for Open the Voice Gate this week comes to us from Hellofresh. With Hellofresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on America's #1 meal service to make home cooking fast, fun, and affordable. Case, you know it just as much as me. It's America's #1 meal kit for good reason.
Oh my God. I mean, this is the summer of love. This is the summer of cooking. This is the summer of HelloFresh. And as you have your most intimate moments with your partner, I want you cooking that sun-dried tomato spaghetti. I want you cooking that one-pot Southwest chicken soup with bulgur. I want you cooking that rigatoni with beef and zucchini ragu. I want you cooking that. I want you smiling in your kitchen. And I want you thinking about me and Mike Spears as you prepare your HelloFresh meals, because you don't have to do a lot of thinking. As I've said before, I am notoriously an idiot, but even I can follow these HelloFresh cooking instructions.
Yeah, they send you a great card each month or each week with your package, and it tells you basically everything to do. Like, I'm someone that's notoriously clumsy, and it's hard for me to find some way to hurt myself cooking HelloFresh, and you even have the app to do that there. But one of the great things about HelloFresh is they have 50 weekly options. Case mentioned some of them, so you can skip weeks when you need to, change your delivery date, update your preferences, all in that friendly app that will teach you how to cook these things. I mean, it's a learning experience, and you're eating at the same time, Case.
I've never heard you get that excited before. We've talked about 5-star matches, and I don't think you've ever hit that pitch, but that is just how fired up HelloFresh gets us. I can't recommend it enough. Look, as I've discussed on this show before, my dream summer is me and a lady of Chicago going to Montrose Beach. I sit there shirtless on the beach with a Mountain Dew Spark in my hand. She's doing whatever she's doing. I want the confidence to take my shirt off in public this summer, and I'm only going to do that if I eat the healthy, fresh meals that HelloFresh delivers to my doorstep every single week.
And how do you get these meals? You go to HelloFresh.com/VOW16 and use code VOW16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh.com/VOW16. Promo code VOW16 for up to 16 free meals and free gifts. HelloFresh, it's America's #1 meal kit. In case that was only the first night they had in Cork, and because we decided to invite some old friends, talk about the old times and reminisce of the past era, as we had the first Toryumon reunion in 2.5 years at Tokyo Korakuen Hall on June 3rd. And no matter what happens with the show, no matter how it's remembered, it will be remembered explicitly for one thing, and that is, Case, we have the debut of the first ever father and son duo in Dragon System history. We've had Riki Iihashi, we have Ohashi, we've had Strong Machine J, but this is the first ever second generation wrestler from the Dragon System with the debut of Masaharu Eto, aka Ryoto Mochizuki, aka now Mochizuki Jr.
If you don't think Dragon Gate is going to make the biggest deal, dare I say, if you don't think Dragon Gate is going to be extra about the debut in subsequent first year or so of the career of Mochizuki Jr., you are sorely mistaken. We saw them roll out the red carpet for Strong Machine J. We saw the hype that surrounded Riki and Iihashi, but this is one of Dragon Gate's own. And this debut, I've said before, a lot of these live shows, because of the nature of how early in the morning I work, I'm able to kind of follow along. If I'm lucky, I can side-eye the Dragon Gate network. If I'm not very specifically avoiding spoilers for something, I've got the Discord pulled up, I'm on Twitter, I can see things going on. And there was this 15-minute stretch where I was not watching the show, but I was following along, and to get hit with the 1-2 punch of Masaki Mochizuki has a son, and he's wrestling in Dragon Gate, and also Ultimo Dragon said, fuck this, you're cheering on my show. It was the biggest whirlwind. I was so confused. I was flabbergasted, but oh my god, was I along for the ride. In this Mochizuki Jr., I am so excited to see what comes of him. I think as we get into the latter half of 2022, M3K is going to be the focal point of this promotion, and rightfully so. And oh my god, Mike, Masaki Mochizuki, one of the 5 greatest wrestlers of all time, has a son, and he's wrestling in Dragon Gate. Oh my god.
It was something that it took me when I discovered the news. It took me about 5 minutes to like properly synthesize. Like it's something that if you're listening to this show, if you know, you know. But just the fact that Masaki Mochizuki pulled this off is like one of those just insane things, and the company is so beside itself about Ryoto / Mochi Jr. It's something that I can't like impress how intimidating it must have been to not only be debuting in pro wrestling, but you're debuting as Masaki Mochizuki's son, and he's reforming M2K with you. And they basically base this entire show with some other things around the fact that you exist. And Case, did you see Mochizuki Jr. look like he was overwhelmed in the moment?
The interesting thing with Mochizuki Jr., and this was apparent in the main event of this show, on the house show match, and the date on that show, that was on, what was this, the 3rd? The Toryumon reunion show was the 3rd. The house show in Aichi on June 4th. The Natural Vibes versus M3K match is on YouTube. Go watch it. It is a very good to legitimately great match, depending on who you ask. But between the main event of this show, the house show on Aichi, and the Kobe Sambo Hall show on the 5th, Mochizuki Jr. did not look overwhelmed, but it is interesting, and I think a testament to Dragon Gate, where there were times, and this will be a backhanded compliment essentially, there were times where he had to take a second to get into the right spot, and that is just something that you don't see in this promotion. That was so interesting to me, to watch a guy who can clearly perform with the likes of a Susumu Mochizuki and a Masaki Mochizuki and a Shuji Kondo. He can wrestle in the same ring as them, but he is not on that level. There were just those times, especially in his debut, where they had to take a second and maybe point him in the right spot, or maybe he had to get on the other side of the ring. And it's a testament to how good Dragon Gate is, but the fact that those are the blemishes on Mochizuki Jr.'s debut record is, okay, yes, he didn't exactly nail the corner kick, and maybe he was in the wrong place by a foot on a few of these spots. That is a job well done. That is a round of applause. This guy is going to be cared for. He's going to be treated properly, and he is going to be, if he wants to be, assuming he can handle the pressure, which from his first 3 matches, I have no reason to believe he will not, he is going to be a big deal. We talk about SB Kento. We talk about Takuma Fujiwara. I don't think it's unrealistic to say we might as well throw Mochizuki Jr. on that list of future guys with a capital G.
Yeah, and if anything, and I don't say this in a way of dismissing Mochizuki Jr. If anything, he has a case of being born on third base. Like, they are going to give him every opportunity. And as we're saying, like, other than like natural slip ups, I mean, you don't really see people going for Senkaku carries in their debut match
Exactly.
that often. So, like,
normally it's a knife edge chop and maybe a vertical suplex.
right, yeah. So I mean, he was doing that and that. So the fact that he slipped getting up to the turnbuckle for it, well, okay, it's your debut match. But in comparison to SBK and Fujiwara, this is a guy that has instantly 50 years of backstory to do, and it's the fact that Masaki Mochizuki is a cornerstone of this promotion for 25 years. Masaki Mochizuki was one of the 3 stars that built Toryumon. It's going to take a lot for Mochizuki Jr. to. There's going to have to be a lot of things that goes wrong. There's a second generation wrestler that I'm thinking of off the top of my head that everything did go wrong, and it would take that kind of scenario for them.
Just because sometimes I'm dull and I don't always read your
Daichi.
mind. Oh my God, that's it. That's the perfect comp. This is why you're such a good co-host. That is exactly it. I mean, it is going to take a level of mistaken error that is just not seen in Dragon Gate from a talent standpoint for Mochizuki Jr. to not become one of these guys. Again, this M3K, I said this last week, maybe newer fans of the product don't realize just how big of a deal M2K was, and the fact that they were slotting him into that position was a big deal, and we didn't know just how big of a deal it was going to be. This M3K thing is a big deal. Like you said, Mike, they built this Toryumon reunion show around him. I mean, this was his show. This was his showcase. And I'm thrilled with his debut. I think this is going to be the coolest thing, especially for longtime Dragon Gate fans, or at least big Masaki Mochizuki fans. And that's my prevailing thought coming out of this. It's not deep, it's not poetic by any means. I just think this is going to be really cool as we see this unfold.
And it's something that we've now see how M3K is. And we've seen, at least in their first 3 matches, they're doing something that's very, very interesting. They're doing something that's very counter to typical Japanese rookies. Masaki Mochizuki's making everyone make sure that Mochizuki Jr. wins every match, to the point of ordering or negotiating with Susumu and Kanda to leave the Royal Sambo on Sunday. He is an overprotective sports dad, and that's the world we live in now, and I find that fascinating.
Here's my thing on nepotism. You ready for this take, Mike?
Okay, this is big, Case. What is your big theory on nepotism?
I don't care if nepotism gets your foot in the door. If you're talented enough to stand your ground once you're there, to me, you are more than welcome to stay there. Because if I wanted to be a musician and I had rock star parents, I would sure as hell hope that they use every contact they have to help me succeed. And if Masaki Mochizuki wants to be a little, play into nepotism a little bit and help Mochizuki Jr. ascend to this point of the card, as long as Mochizuki Jr. can hang in this spot, he is more than welcome to do so. I love that they had him get the pinfall at his debut, that Mochizuki Sr. now, as well, I guess we'll call him, Masaki Mochizuki, play defense on UT to get a count-out victory for his son at the house show, and I cackled at the finish of the Royal Sambo Battle Royal. I love what they're doing with him.
And it's something that we'll talk more about it when we get to it. It's very clear what the road ahead for M3K is, right? Like, it's clear that at least to me, that M3K are the ones that are going to get the belts back.
So yes, let's rip this Band-Aid off now. We're recording this podcast as of right now. Stinger are the Open the Triangle Gate champions. I forget what combination of guys there are, but Yoshinari Ogawa is an Open the Triangle Gate champion.
It's Siki Yoshioka. It's one of the 2, I think.
Is he? Oh my. Well, let me find out. I have Pure Love open. So right now, the current Open the Triangle Gate champions are Yoshinari Ogawa, Seki Yoshioka, and Yuya Susumu. By the time most of you hear this, I fully anticipate Daisuke Harada, Atsushi Katoge, and Yohei, of all people, to become the Open the Triangle Gate champions. What they have done this entire year is there have been 0 successful defenses of the Triangle Gate belts going back to that ill-fated Jason Lee, Coach Menorah, Shun Skywalker team. Eita, Hyo, and Ishida dropped the belt in 1 defense. JFK, KZ, and UT dropped the belt in 1 defense. They only had the titles for 13 days. Ishida, Menorah, and Doi dropped the belt in 1 defense. And Eita, Suzuki, and Nozawa dropped the belt in 1 defense. These guys have not been able to successfully retain the Triangle Gate belts in any match this year. I fully expect Stinger to join that party, and whether M3K is defeating the trio of Harada, Katoge, and Yohei for the belts, or if there's another team in between that wins them from that Noah trio, I do not know, but I fully expect these belts to bounce around until they get to M3K, in which they will have a prolonged reign.
And this is not an uncommon thing, just to counter the Nosawa thing. Like when unit shuffles happen, belts become a little bit more dynamic. And the Triangle Gate is just I think this belt will probably bounce around a lot until it lands back on Peros, and then Peros will lose M3K at Kobe World.
I thought they were going to tell this story with Gold Class. I saw what they were doing at the start of the year, and I thought it was just going to be, okay, the weird Masquerade team, they had no defenses. The Dying Days of RED, they had no defenses. Natural Vibes, they had no defenses. Once Gold Class won the belts, I thought this was the story they were going to tell then, and I believe I voiced that on this podcast. But now we see that there's even a larger game in play here, because at the time I was unaware of the existence of Masaki Mochizuki's professional wrestling son. That's a game changer. That changes my booking philosophy a little bit. But I fully expect...
In case to be fair, we were not aware that Masaki Mochizuki had children up until the Young Bucks wrote the book.
Yes.
Like that's just something that I feel like should be stressed for international fans. The veil between private life and public life has not been entirely pierced in Japanese pro wrestling.
And I think Americans could learn something from that too, but I digress.
No one cares about our business. Keep your business to yourself.
Look, if you're listening to this podcast and Stinger are still the Triangle Gate champions, I will be stunned. I don't think that's the end of the world. I don't think there's a booking power struggle going on, but I would be stunned if by the time most of you hear this, Ogawa, Yoshioka, and Yuya Susumu are Open the Triangle Gate champions. So we'll obviously check back in on that next week. It could be a case where Harada, Katoge, and Yohei win the belts, and then they wrestle in Fukuoka this week. And I don't know the Noah schedule off the top of my head, but they've got 3 Fukuoka shows. They've got to have main events. It would not surprise me if one of those main events is an Open the Triangle Gate championship. So again, we'll monitor that as we go along. Real quick, let me throw... I'm assuming you haven't, but have you seen this June 8th Noah Cork and Hall card?
I am looking at Pure Love right now. I see their June 8th card. Oh God, I did not see their attendance yesterday. Okay.
Oh yeah, 455. Yeah. Oh my God. Number 2 promotion Japan. Show me another fucking bar graph with that information, you nerd. But what I do like on this show is look at that match number 2. That is a very tasty match of Eita, Kotaro Suzuki, and Nozawa versus Alejandro, Hao, and Extreme Tiger. I'm gonna have to fire up the Wrestle Universe when that gets on there and watch that.
You know how I feel about Alejandro too. Like
you're in on the Alejandro, right?
Big Alejandro guy. He was the one out of Wrestle 1. I was wondering why he didn't get signed immediately.
Yeah, that's good stuff there. Noah regularly doing 450 in attendance, but as I kind of alluded to a few weeks ago, have you noticed that All Japan is doing really well in Cork and Hall right now?
Yeah, and I wonder how much of it was their schedule at that point. They're popping some numbers, but nothing like I thought I saw like an All Japan number that was like back in like the 500s recently.
Well, here's what I'm confused on. So March 12th, they do 296 in Cork and Hall. It's headlined by an All Asia Tag Team title match. I mean, it's It's a non-show. Miyahara's in a 6-man. There's a singles match of Yoshitatsu versus Kazuma Sakamoto. And then again, that All-Asia Tag Main event, which is just nothing. But that Champion Carnival final, which was Yuma Aoyagi versus Jake Lee, which was known ahead of time, did 986. And this most recent, this May 29th Korakuen Hall show with Miyahara versus T-Hawk, which I heard was great. I have not seen it yet. That did 905. That's a good number.
For them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that because first of all, I don't have the bandwidth in my life right now to care about All Japan, but that's double what Noah's doing. And I don't follow All Japan close enough to know what to do with that information. But I think good for them. 2 900 crowds in a row in Korakuen Hall for them. That is a massive win.
Yeah, and then now that I'm looking at it up, I guess with them, I just would say observe for a couple months, then draw your conclusions. I feel like it's too early, in my opinion.
Look, there is a continuous trend in that company of whenever T-Hawk and Lindemann are in main event matches, that is when they do their best numbers. And some people might not like to hear that, but T-Hawk and Lindemann are a draw in All Japan.
And it's funny where they're not a draw.
In their home promotion.
Thank you. Serve that one right over the plate.
You do a podcast with Mike Spears long enough, you pick up on some of his hints.
So, with going back to Mochizuki Jr. and going back to the general situation in the promotion, we had Mochi Jr. come in, but that also came pretty soon off the heels of that. I think it was like the next day. We got news that another member of the class of 2022 has fallen. Riki Iihashi has retired. There's not going to be a retirement match. There's not going to be any ceremony. He is out of the wrestling business, and I don't think we're going to expect to ever see him.
No, we have on very reliable source that this is a guy who just did not enjoy his professional wrestling career, and that for whatever reason, it was just not the profession that he wanted to be in, and he got out. I saw a lot of people making a really big deal about him not getting a retirement match, or at least opting out of the choice to have a retirement match. I don't. How did you read that? Because to me, it was just I editorialized it as possibly shame that he was retiring. Some people editorialized it as no, he has beef with something or someone, and we now have a reliable source saying no, it's just that he didn't really like wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that Shoya's retirement probably was the deal because of how long he was around and the fact that they made a deal about him in his hometown, and he did a lot of promotion there. So that was kind of an aberration for people who really have not spent a long time to get a retirement match. I mean, Sora Fujikawa didn't get one. Others haven't that debuted and left there. Unless Riki Iihashi started doing Kota Ibushi tweets, I think that people are just speculating because that's how they choose to read the tea leaves. Before we heard that, I assumed either shame or the fact that maybe his injury just was not going to be on a time frame and he wanted to move on in life. I mean, the bigger thing I think that's worth talking about in terms of these retirements are it's not the younger wrestlers or the younger trainees that are retiring. Shoya was 29. Riki Iihashi turns 26 next month. Sora Fujikawa, I think now is 27, but he was significantly older than the other three there. I think that's if there's something you want to get out of this scenario, it's the fact that I think the older trainees kind of, it's intimidating coming back from an injury like that. And when you're in your mid to late 20s, do you really want to start like that and only get your career really going if you're in Riki Ihashi's position, probably when you turn 29, 30? Like, is that something? And that's even besides the fact that it seems like that he tried wrestling, discovered that really wasn't his thing, and just got hurt and decided that was it for him.
And also something that I emphasize, and it's hard because Dragon Gate is so good at debuting these rookies with a bang, and we get so excited and we go, well, this guy could do this, and this is his comp, and here's his 5-year plan. But as I will always emphasize, because we have learned the hard way, because I've been in that spot before, and I have unfortunately had to deal with the crushing reality that just not everybody makes it. And if you look at the history of the Dragon Gate Dojo and that post-Toryumon world, did Lupin Matsutani, did he retire from injury?
He got hurt a lot, man.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
let's lump him in there. Let's just say Lupin was one of those guys. You obviously have the class of 2008 and 2009, which for multiple reasons did not work out. And then as you get into more modern history, Yamamura retired because of an injury. Katsumi Takashima retired because of an injury.
And he was older.
Yes, and he was. Oji Shiba retired because of an injury, and I believe he was older, wasn't he?
I think OG now, I had his age a while back. I think he's in his mid-20s.
Okay, all right. But then again, you go forward and okay, well, you lose Fujikawa from the class of 20, and then you lose Riki Iihashi and Shoya Sato from the class of 21, but that's just the reality of professional wrestling. One of the things that I thought Jay did a really good job of on commentary was hammering home at the very end of 2021 when we got all of these guys together, these 6 wrestlers debuting roughly at the same time with the Ohashi brothers in September, Hayakawa, now Menorah in October, and then Fujiwara, Fuda, and Sato in November, was, hey, there were 6 guys that made it through the hell that was Green Boy status. They completed their training, and for 6 guys to come out of that is insane. And I said it when we talked about Gate of Origin when these guys debuted and we were so excited. Look, not all of these guys are going to make it. I think there are some people, and rightfully so, because it's 2 retirements on the heels of each other, that want to play safety police or question the way that Dragon Gate does things or wonder if this is a safe style or not. Look, this is just the reality of professional wrestling. I don't think it's an indictment on Dragon Gate. It sucks. Look, I thought Riki Iihashi was going to be a star. His natural charisma is one that I have seen in such few wrestlers. I really believe that he is someone who could have projected in a hotel conference room center in front of 200 people in Sendai. He's somebody that could have projected in Kobe World Kinnan Hall. He had that sort of charisma in my eyes, and it's a bummer that we're not going to see him and his career play out. But that's just the reality of pro wrestling. And you know what? Let's take the example of UT. UT was really young when he debuted, and UT spent 5 or 6 years in injury hell. And if he had debuted and he was 25, he probably just would have hung it up. He didn't. He was young. Now we see how great he is. I'm so glad he's on the roster. But these older guys, that time frame is much, much smaller. That window of success is much smaller, and we're seeing the reality of that play out.
Yeah, and you just explained my point a lot better than I could about this. The last thing to really keep in mind is this is always a law of averages with rookies to see who's going to really stick it out there. And, this was the largest class that they had since the Toryumon days. So losing 2 at this rate does not feel like a disaster because, they lost one in 2020, they lost one in 2016, and you keep on going back, and there's people that just don't make it. And I don't know if I necessarily, like, the injury police thing, the one thing I could say is maybe in Shoya Sato's case, you take a step back and you go, maybe not good for you to do this given your history, but who's to say what's going to happen in the ring? Like Madoka Kakuta, you do a drop toe hold and you dislocate your shoulder and you're out for a year. You can't plan and you can't safety police stuff like that. Some things just happen. It's just happened.
And we'll try to get an update on Ryu Fuda. Obviously, there's been a lot of silence on that end as well, but we'll see if we can get an update on that because he is still on the shelf as well.
Right. But getting back to the Toryumon reunion, we did want to make sure to talk about Riki here. The big thing, I did not write this in my written review, but now that I've sat with this over the weekend case and we talked about kind of in terms of, I hate to constantly bring this up, in terms of like the Nosawa thing, this was an Ultimo show. This was in 2019 when Ultimo came back case. This was the things we were kind of worried about, but when it's done like on this kind of show where it's supposed to be an Ultimo show, it was great. I had such a fun time watching the show.
Yeah, this is, and I feel this way about the Cork and Hall show and this show where normally I can come on here and I can say, this is essential viewing, go watch this immediately. I think the best way to consume this past week's shows is you have to watch them from start to finish, and they're not long shows, and there's English commentary for both of them. But it would be really hard for me to go on the Toryumon reunion show, with the exception of the main event, to go, yep, you're going to want to watch that, because it just flowed so well. It was nostalgia wrestling done right. It was fun. It was lighthearted. It served its purpose. It didn't overstay its welcome. It was just fun to watch.
And it's fun to see someone like Ultimo out there really in his element throughout the 3 hours there.
Wrestling in a 6-man tag and not a singles match.
Unilaterally deciding people can cheer. Wrestling in a 6-man tag with someone that notable that he's kept there, by the way, and they made it a 6-man tag.
Yeah, Ultimo's got his friends. I mean, look, it's very funny to me now, as you and I were talking over the weekend about how we just passed the 4-year anniversary, and next year will be 5 years of the OWE split. And, it took another year for Ultimo to come back into the fold. And I had such intense paranoia in the summer and fall of 2019 of what Dragon Gate with Ultimo Dragon was going to look like, because Ultimo has his old luchador friends, and he has his late stage era Toryumon trainees that he is loyal to, and it's a complicated situation on multiple fronts with multiple wrestlers. It's not defending Ohara by any means, because what he's alleged of doing is just disgusting. But I was so concerned about just what Ultimo was going to do, and the little things like bringing back battle royals. I was like, no, not on my Dragon Gate. I do not want this shit here. Where's Shima at? Let me go to Shanghai. Let me see what's going on in Wrestle 1, because at the time, it really seemed like Shima's product was going to be more palatable. And it's so funny now with the hindsight that we have, and in the current landscape, we can really see Ultimo's vision of what wrestling is and what Shima's vision of wrestling is. And it's not that one of those is better than the other, but GLEAT feels so different than Dragon Gate. And I think that's so interesting, because this is a show that, even in the balls on Dragon Gate, if they would have done this, and obviously they did not, but a Toryumon reunion show run by Shima would have looked drastically different than this show. And it's not a take of one's better than the other. I just think it's so interesting that now, post-split, with Ultimo coming back into the fold, we know what his vision of wrestling is, and we know what the other vision of wrestling is, and where that can now take place.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at this, and you look at how they packaged the show. They had the original ring announcer, Punch Tahara, was there doing it. You led off with M2K, and then you immediately had the new generation kind of poke their heads in and fill out the card where it needed to be with Z-Brats, but you still really had, it was like a Toryumon show, and they just were the heel unit there. And then you had the standard comedy match. You had the trios match that was kind of lighthearted but broke down. You had a kleptomaniac, and then you had the Ultimo match, and you had the main event. Like what to this? Like, if other than names, where people are in life and all of that, you dropped this card in 2002, and it might not be the same thing, but it's going to be the same language,
Yeah, no, this was a very enjoyable experience rather, not an experiment, because the first one was an experiment. This was an experience. Let's talk about the pressing issue at hand, Naruki Doi's baseball team. Talk about this angle on Corkin Hall, and then the execution of it on this show.
All right, so after the gold class match on the second, Naruki Doi finally snapped to, realizing he had to pick a team for the next day. I mean, this show has been in the books for well over a month. He is leaving his work until the last moment, something that I both recognize and respect, because I see it in myself. And he started quizzing everyone about if they played baseball growing up. First up was Shimizu. Shimizu said, "Yes, I played first base." Okay, you're first, Shimizu. And then it was Fujiwara who said, "Yeah, I played baseball, but I hurt my arm throwing baseball, so I can't play baseball anymore." Could not get through to the Zoomer's head that he was not actually playing baseball, that he was actually wrestling as a baseball character. Could not get through it. He got flabbergasted. He went over to Menorah. Menorah said, "Yeah, of course I played baseball, but I played second base." In case that's a problem if you're Naruki Doi trying to fill out a baseball team, because Naruki Doi, of course, plays second base. He's second Doi. And then finally, he went to Takashi Yoshida, who, like always, was just waiting to be picked, and proudly stated that he was a catcher. Doi winced and we had Doi starting 3 for the.
Takashi Yoshida in Naruki Doi. It makes me sick to my stomach that I enjoy Yoshida's work as much as I do, but him being excluded from Gold Class and him being included in Team Doi's baseball team, two of my favorite moments in recent Dragon Gate history, because Yoshida has been so damn good in these moments.
It's just so much fun. Like the starting 3 was such like a great thing to do for one night and then immediately break down. Like
it's just that's exactly it. The fallout on the Toryumon reunion show was brilliant. It was so Naruki Doi.
It was so Naruki Doi, and we had Ho-Ho questioning if this was actually going to be a wrestling match. So that cracked me up there. And then, of course, in the post-match afterwards, Doi turned on a Yoshi. Yeah, I mean, that's in his nature. If you have Yoshi in your name, you're getting turned on by Naruki Doi. And then Koichiro Arai, they were going up against the Arai brothers, Kenichiro Arai and his fake brothers, Koichiro and Chuichiro. And after that, Gold Class ran out and had to defend Doi as Shimizu and Yoshida were pissed. And they said there would be no more fun and games with Gold Class going forward. And it seems like that they're going to be following Kaito Ishida's logic going forward.
Kaito Ishida's a man I trust. I have no issue with that direction in Gold Class.
But Case, that wasn't the most important match. It wasn't the first debut of a Dragon System second generation wrestler. The most important match in this show was built on the fact because Don Fuji likes stealing things, and the night before he stole Dragon Dia's skateboard, and he's one of the 100 greatest wrestlers of all time, and he put it on display this weekend. Case, what else do you want me to say?
It's just, this promotion's just the best. Like, I'm sorry, it doesn't do me any good. I have no skin in the game. I am not interested in a turf war of what promotion is better. But I'm sorry, Don Fuji riding a skateboard to the ring is better than what's happening at Noah, All Japan, AEW, etc., etc., etc. I don't know how to get, and I've said this before, the people of Reddit, the people that are like logged on to Squared Circle, I don't know how to reach them and say, this is the pinnacle of pro wrestling. It's Don Fuji riding a skateboard, but this deserves a bigger English-speaking audience.
Yeah, it's something that, I mean, they promoted Gentleman Jervis for so long.
A crime that is not forgivable. I'm not a man of capital punishment, but if you were positively posting about Jervis, I would hide those receipts from me.
Yeah. So it's just something that. So I watched Norm Macdonald's Final Stand-Up special this week, and you realize if you watch a lot of stand-up comedy, like certain people, that their approach to comedy is completely different than anyone else. Don Fuji's like awareness of himself is phenomenal, and understanding, like coming out wearing a baklava and a giant pink crew neck Dragon Gate shirt, and everyone immediately knowing it was him, but just his body language trying to be mysterious had me cracking up. Like that is just comedy 101 out of Don Fuji, and that's why I sincerely think he's one of the 100 best wrestlers of all time, because he's able to delve into understanding how comedy operates and then have a brutal match where he beats up someone half his age.
I've said before, he is on near the top of the list of guys I would really like to sit down. Like Chuck Taylor once said, he was doing a shoot interview, and he was talking about Low-Ki in Evolve and how difficult Low-Ki was to deal with. And Taylor brought up an interesting point. He said, I would love to sit down and just ask Low-Ki, okay, to you, what is professional wrestling? Like, what is the desired outcome? And it is the polar opposite of what Low-Ki is, but in the same way, I would really like to sit down and have Don Fuji explain to me how for 25 years now, he has been on the cusp of brilliant, if not brilliant, throughout his entire career. And it's, I weirdly feel the same way about Kazuma Sakamoto just because he's been so world-traveled. But yeah, Fuji is, and I do not mean this as a hyperbole, he is a brilliant pro wrestler in all aspects of the game.
And that's what we had built up here. I mean, very simple stuff. Don Fuji's been a kleptomaniac for 25 years. He saw a skateboard, thought it was a surfboard, remembered him stealing a surfboard from Kiki Horiguchi, and decided to take it. And then Dragon Dia is infuriated because he loves his skateboard. That's all. I just described it in 2 sentences, Case. And they had instantly one of the more compelling things that they're getting an Apuestas match out of this thing. Because so they had this match. Basically, Don Fuji was just completely able to fluster Dragon Dia, was able to attack him, and just kind of was completely off his game. And then Dia cut a promo afterwards demanding the skateboards return away another match. Don Fuji wouldn't do it unless there was something at stake. He offered to put his hair up. Ryo Saito, who has a lot of familiarity and dealing with Don Fuji stealing things, try to talk him out of it, but then they booked it. It's a Lucha de Apuestas, Caballera contra Skateboard on July 7th. And GM Ryo Saito, he's so pained to see a young man going through what all he went through before. And he said, I will be the special guest referee to make sure you don't go through what I went.
It should be terrific. I am really, really excited for the outcome of that match.
And I think pretty much, unless you really had a bunch of thoughts about the comedy tag with bike rider Ryo Saito and Kenjiro Matsuyama, I don't really have a whole lot of other things that happen on the show.
Let me ask you this. Of the non-full-time Dragon Gate wrestlers, of the guys that were just returning to the fold for this show, who impressed you the most?
It's the person who impresses me every time I see him. It's Masahiro Takanashi.
Oh, I do like him. Yeah, go ahead.
He's so good. He
really is.
I really wish, I know that through Toryumon X and all that, it landed the way it did for him. I wish he stuck around.
Yeah, I feel that way a lot of times about Toru Ohashi, who newer Dragon Gate fans would probably not know as Ark and Sito, but rather the guy that assisted Takuma Fujiwara in his middle school career day at the Michinoku Pro Dojo. I like Nohashi a lot. I thought Chango in that opening match was a lot of fun.
That was the most I've enjoyed Chango. I asked for Chango in my last review for Volume 1. I asked for Chango never to see again.
That's the thing. I had to question myself because, I'm not exactly a regular 2AW viewer, and he's not a guy that works any place that I watch frequently. And I was like, wait a minute.
Any place reputable. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. I was like, wait, I kind of thought he sucked. I feel like I've never seen his name next to a compliment, but he was so much fun in that opening match.
Yeah, it's something that, and this was a point I wanted to make before we moved on. In 2020, they were able to do the reunion show in January before COVID, so you were able to bring people in with this. They were not able to bring in everyone who you'd think they would want to bring in for this. And they had to fill out the card with the Dragon Gate guys, younger guys there. But you still got to see things like Masahiro Takanashi looking great, Chango for the first time ever, not depressing me immensely. And yeah, Toru Ohashi is just great. He's a busy man. He helps run Michinoku Pro. He helps middle schoolers find their dreams. But I'd like to see him back around more often.
Yeah, Nohashi rocks. I really like his work.
Yeah. And then I did not know about Tadasuke until this.
No, I don't think I did either.
So Tadasuke originally was a part of the class that kind of at least I'll say I did not know the whole story behind this class up until recently. He is a contemporary in the Dragon system of Shingo Takagi, BB Hulk, and Akira Tozawa.
And one of those things is not like the other. With all due respect to Tadasuke, I don't know if I've ever enjoyed his work, but I did not know he was a part of that class until now.
Yeah. You notice I didn't bring up Katsuo as a part of that class. you do a podcast with someone and you want to make sure that you leave them fat balls over the plate. And yeah, that was the Toryumon reunion. Maybe we'll get another one next year. Who knows what government mandates Ultimo Dragon will try to break. Oh, El Hijo de Santo case. He got announced to coming to Kobe World this year.
Okay. You were grumpy about this, and I don't understand why.
I wasn't grumpy.
You were grumpy about this.
I think sometimes my grumpiness, because I'm naturally kind of a prickly person, my grumpiness or my general countenance, or when things amuse me, some people take that as negativity. I'm very amused that El Hijo del Santo is going to be there, but I'm also pretty certain that very few of the native fans know who El Hijo del Santo is.
I'm not surprised by it. I was expecting a big name, and Santo certainly fits that bill. maybe it's just because I really, really want to see Santo wrestle in person before he retires, and I don't know if I'm going to get that opportunity, so I'm just excited to see him make tape when he does. I think this is super cool. I don't care if no one in Kobe knows who he is. I think it's super cool that he's going to be on these shows, and I'm really excited to see what he does.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've not seen a modern Santo match. Like after like a certain point when he started doing Todos X Todos and just not televised or just only pops up on stuff that is third party or shows up on like Mas Lucha's YouTube channel, you don't see a whole lot of them. So I'm like fascinated to see like you bring in you bring in probably like one of like a handful of the biggest Lucha Libre stars of all time. Who do you match up with him with this? Like obviously he's gonna be doing stuff with Ultimo, but there's a part of me that's like, how about let's see how he does with Big Boss Shimizu. I want to see that. Just
look, I would pay good money to get Shimizu in some legendary Lucha 8-man tag, because I think realistically you'll have
that's
Genki
when you know they're Silas booking the company. That's when you know.
Thank you. You'll probably get, maybe Ultimo and Santo versus Genki and Dragon Kid or something. I expect those kind of names to be involved. I mean, I discussed it a few months ago. I watched that Santo and Ultimo versus Shocker and El Hijo del Fishman match from WrestleMania weekend, and Santo's obviously not what he was 40 years almost into his career, but he can still move around. I don't think he's going to embarrass himself on these shows.
Yeah, no, I'm not afraid about this. This is not like bringing in Dos Caras now.
Oh God,
or Momas Caras.
Boy.
Basically, the whole entire Caras fam.
Dos Caras, even on that 2006 Kobe World Show sucked shit. Although he did, that Kobe World Show is interesting. It's Dos Caras versus BB Hulk, and Caras does a tope suicido that the crown of his head hits BB Hulk square in the jaw. And I bet if you ask Hulk, a man who has broken his neck, who has had countless shoulder injuries, I bet that tope suicida has hurt worse than any of those, because there is a slow motion replay on the live pay-per-view feed, and you see this old ass luchador head first right into his jaw, and it looks so unbelievably painful.
I mean, that's what tope is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a headbutt.
It is gnarly. I mean, it looks like it's a great tope. It's the high spot of the match because everything else was bad. But oh my God, that had to suck so much.
Yeah, I mean, but he was like 2 years in the business. I mean, Dos Caras isn't going to show you any respect until you cross the 50-year mark. Before I move on, I am staring at the announcement photo of Ultimo and Hio, and it's tremendous that Hio del Santo was gifted like a WBC belt, like the boxing organization. It was like wrestling ambassador, and he wears it around everywhere. He's still recognized as a WBC champ.
Mike, I searched El Hijo del Santo on YouTube so I could remember the names of that Martinez Promotions match, and it has led me to a video, apparently from Palo Alto, Pennsylvania, which sounds like a fake place. April 15th, 2000.
I know what this is. I already know what this is.
Santo versus Quackenbush. Are you aware of this match taking place?
Yes, I am. That was FWA, which was a turn of the century kind of super indie that existed that brought in Hio del Santo, and Quack was like crazy injured going into the match, and he got very depressed, and he wrote about it in one of his books. When I Care About Chikara, I read him talk about it. He was a real sad boy about that match.
That is getting watched as soon as we hang up on this call, because I was just unaware that this match took place, and I find it to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you on that. Oh, but before we start talking about other topics, I should say, since we didn't say this earlier, the Toryumon reunion show will be up on the network until the 10th. It has English and Japanese commentary. It's really worth listening to the English commentary for Jay and Ho-Ho just dealing with the show, Ryoto, Mochizuki Jr., all of that. And King of Gate finals will be up on the network until the 9th. So there's a lot of stuff up there. I mean, they are not taking off the month before, but before Kobe World at all. But that was not the only shows that happened last weekend, Case. Let's talk a little bit about this Kobe Sambo Hall show and the new unit that came out of it.
Yes, let's talk about this new unit first, a Kobe exclusive unit. Mike, explain to the folks what is going on in Kobe.
So for a while, the big talk since Jason Lee joined Natural Vibes was that they were going to get a Hong Kong unit because you had Jason Lee, of course, and then he apologized to Ho Ho Lun, and Ho Ho being a gracious person is like, hey, we're back to being close friends. Let's team again. And then Jackie Kamei pointed out, hey, everyone thinks I'm from Hong Kong. Why don't we do a Hong Kong trio? And everyone was like, yeah, sure. But the Kung Fu Masters debuted in Kobe with Ho Ho's best friend, and that is the returning Super Shenlong 3.
This rocks. I am into this unit as a Kobe exclusive. I thought their main event match here... Did you give a star rating to the Kobe main event?
Let me page over to that. I had it at a 3.5.
Okay, I was at 3 3/4. You could have talked me into 4 stars if you were that high on it, but I see I was a little higher on it than you. Really fun unit. Ho Ho is such an interesting wrestler because he's not exactly a natural in the same way that an SB Kento or a Fujiwara or even his contemporary Jason Lee is. But Dragon Gate does have a knack for getting the most out of their guys, and he is consistently being placed in opportunities to win. And he has this back and forth going with SB Kento right now where he keeps on pinning SB Kento, and I think that's a great story to tell. That is keeping me engaged on these Kobe shows. I really like this main event. I love the concept for this unit. I love that we get a weird return of Super Shenlong. Like, this is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's something that, I mean, they have to run Kobe so often. And, the attendance in Kobe has been pretty strong, or at least it's been stable to strong. So having something like this that's exclusively to Kobe, it adds a little something to it. And, seeing Super Shenlong 3 for the first time in almost 10 years, that was a shock. I did not see that coming. I thought they were going to put a student under a mask, but instead we got a return of an Akatsuki original.
Yes, which Jay outed on Twitter, so we can say that's Yosuke Santa Maria. If people were unaware, before Yosuke was Yosuke, she was Super Shenlong, and that is what we reverted back to.
Yeah. I no, that's public knowledge even beforehand. Like, because after Shenlong got unmasked, Yosuke wrestled as Yosuke Watanabe, the former Super Shenlong 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I should note on this show real quick, we talked last week, or whenever the last Kobe show was, I don't remember when that was, about the autograph line for Binsuke and how it was notably scarce in attendance. I should note that the person that was in the building at this show said that there was a high-end autograph session of Yamato Benkei and, quote, someone else it was too crowded for me to see. And the inclusion of Yamato ended up turning the high-end autograph queue into, or the high-end autograph line, to Americanize that, into a pretty crowded space. So it's not the end of the world for high-end, but maybe this Binsuke team means far more to English speakers than it does Japanese fans.
And maybe, Yamato maybe had some new samples. We haven't seen a new recipe coming out of the licensed food coordinator in a long time.
Maybe Yamato's very, very popular, and sometimes this podcast in particular might undersell that.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is very true. And then also on Kobe, did you check out the future match?
Yes, I did. I have determined it is really hard for me to have takes on future matches because they are all very fun. But that is as far as my analysis goes. It is very fun, and you should go watch it.
Yeah, and the two guys, Yoshiki Kato and Takuma, I can't read my handwriting right here. Takuma Nishikawa, a little bit bigger. Like that was my one. That was my takeaways. Were that Nishikawa, he's a big boy. He's got some heft to him and some size.
Yeah, I like it. I'm very bullish on the future. The fact that they've got, how many kids were in this future class? Like, I think they've got another 5, and one of them was Mochizuki Jr. So yeah. It never stops with them. It never stops, and it is incredible to see.
Yeah, this is really a exciting time to really, if you're like how we are and you love watching young wrestlers progress and, learn the trade. This is a exciting time to be a Dragon Gate fan because, gosh, I feel like they're up to like 24 future matches now on the Dragon Gate network. Like, if you're really into this stuff, Dragon Gate has you covered, right?
And if you're an international fan, there's a chance that Dragon Gate wrestlers might be coming to a town near you.
Yeah, so let's get into this. The big thing also coming from Kobe was the fact that after a match with Ultimo Dragon, La Estrella, and Takuma Fujiwara, they have announced that Toryumon Casa is ready to take people in, and that the two first people that'll be sent over, that they might already be in Mexico City right now, are La Estrella and Takuma Fujiwara, and that's not all.
I know at least Estrella had dinner with Dragon Dia the night before we recorded this, so I believe he's saying his goodbyes and will jet off to Mexico sometime soon. Let's see, how do I want to tackle this? Yes, Estrella and Fujiwara are going to Mexico. I will say we have strong reason to believe that they will be joined by at least one member of the roster at some point soon. Mike and I have seen some text back and forth. I think there's something getting lost in translation there. There's something a little bit fishy that I'm not ready to put my name on, but Fujiwara and Estrella are going to Mexico. They will be joined more than likely by at least one more roster member, and I know for a fact that there are American promoters getting contacted about bringing in Estrella and Fujiwara, so hopefully they are not only able to work in Mexico, but also America as well.
It's also worth noting, and just throwing it out there, our DMs are open if you're a promoter and trying to figure stuff out with these guys. We can supply some
I'd be
matches.
more than happy to. Yes, I contacted a promoter this week and said, hey, my man, what's going on? I should note, not all promoters that have been contacted are interested in booking Fujiwara and La Estrella, as there is a very notable, influential promoter that was sent footage of both of these guys, and the response back was, I saw the tape you sent me. We did not contact this guy. This is from a third party. I saw the tape you sent me, was not impressed with either one, and that fucking rocks.
But hey, if you want to partake in your promoter in one of the most spectacular rookie years in recent memory, you could get one up on that promoter. That apparently is going to pass it by. But yeah,
that is so good. That is so good.
It rules. It rules. It rules.
Yeah, I saw both of them. Not interested. Okay, all right. Now go back to booking who you were booking.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm looking at a run sheet case, and I think we covered just about everything. Was there anything? Oh, there's one last thing. Do you think we have time to talk about this?
I have nothing to say on it, so yeah, you have the floor.
So it was announced through the OWE English fan Twitter account that OWE has dissolved. A lot of the wrestlers, because of how China is right now, especially in Shanghai, are locked down. They really have not put on any sort of what I would consider a real wrestling show from OWE in China before COVID. But and I think that's something that I really want to hammer home. And I will be talking a lot more about this on my other platforms over the next few days. But just
give those platforms a plug, please.
Yeah, if you follow Twitter at Spears Ovations, or if you go to twitch.tv/Spears Ovations about 12:30 Eastern time on Wednesdays, we'll be talking all about this, and I'll be talking a lot more about this. But OWE, I mean, they technically count the Strong Hearts shows as OWE on Cage Match, but they really have not run shows inside of China proper in almost 3 years. This was going to happen, and it was going to happen with COVID or without, from the state of things. And it does seem that the one thing that I cared about when I found out that this shut down, it does appear, I don't know, but it does appear that the wrestlers who were under those really long-term contracts, it seems that they're able to move on in life and not be held to that contract, which is good.
It's a bizarre story. It's one that, I think 10 years from now, we're probably going to continuously have people ask us about this, because their impact was so short but so intense with the AEW relationship, proposed relationship especially. But their legacy to me will be May 4th, 2018, that last Dragon Gate show that Shima was on, the second to last show that Dragon Gate show that T-Hawk was on. and that tag match of Shima and Gao Jinja versus Scorpio X2 and T-Hawk. I've never seen a professional wrestling match that looked like that, and I love the potential of what could have been, and I'm disappointed that this is the end of the road. But if they get out of those long-term contracts, then congratulations to them.
And it does seem that a couple of the OWE kids are still staying in wrestling. So I know Gao was one of the ones that was working with some of the other Chinese wrestling promotions, but I'll talk about this more in depth and what this means about like wrestling emerging scenes like this, like China, again, kind of falling flat for wrestling promotions. There's a lot of things there that I personally find very, very interesting about this, that I don't want OWE to be forgotten and then brought back up in 10 years. It's something that, even though it had its brief moment, I felt like that it deserves more than just to kind of just go away because one random fan account tweeted about it and that was it. I felt like that it deserved to have more to talk about, because for a moment it felt like it was going to be big.
Oh, we discussed on this podcast. I very specifically remember chastising Eita, his effort, and the main point of that being he could be in Shanghai if he wanted to right now, but he did not work hard enough. And it is tough if you're somebody that came into Dragon Gate during the pandemic, or, you know, with English commentary, even by that point, English commentary, Kobe World 2019, the first year of the split, the consensus within this bubble, and I don't want to speak for everybody, the consensus in this bubble was, damn, Shima's going to win again. Dragon Gate, nice little promotion. They've got their guys, but Shima's going to win again. And for a brief moment in time, it looked like the influence of OWE could take over the wrestling world. And again, what we really have is that May 4th, 2018 match, which is unfortunately not on the Dragon Gate network. I know it's been online at various points on Daily Motion and on the Russian website. So if you can track it down and you've never seen it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and the first OWE show, like the one from 2018 that had the Dragon Gate guys, like that, there's still versions of that are floating out there. I never bothered with the fight shows that they had in Cambodia. It just, at that point, I was like, all right, really?
No, I didn't even know there was footage of those. I knew they happened, but I never saw video of them.
They streamed those live on Fight TV case.
I missed that. My bad. I'm supposed to cover all Court of the Dragon system. I missed that. That's my bad.
You're better off. You're better off. It just, yeah. But yeah, just like a wild thing. Like, I'm right now looking at that first show, the main event of Shima, Gao Jinja, Will Jin-ren defeat Desmond Xavier, Shingo Takagi, and Zachary Wentz. What a time.
That's insane.
That match was.
There was that Masaki Mochizuki versus A-Ben match on that show, and A-Ben was basically their Ben K knockoff, kind of dollar store Ben K, but could do like a tope. And I remember that match being very fun as well.
His tope wasn't really a tope, and that was the crazy thing about it. His tope basically was him crowd dive.
It was more akin to a stage dive, you're right, than an actual tope. And then you have the weird stuff where, you know, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian went over there, and there's footage of those guys. It's a very strange story that, you know, you were as close with anybody on this stuff. I mean, you had the scoop again before anybody else that there was going to be an OWE split from Dragon Gate. You knew that. You reported that before anybody else. And like I said, I think this is something that, although the promotion is dead, the story of this promotion will not die. And I think, you know, 5, 6, 7 years from now, we're still going to have people go, whatever happened to those kids in China, which is a very interesting thing.
I do wonder what's going to happen with all those random shows that Shima shot in like an art gallery on his iPad.
Oh God, that's right. I forgot about the twit casting shows.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how Gleek kind of came out of this. I'm like looking at like one of the last ones they had, and you already have like Kawakami showing up there, and you're like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense.
And this is, you know, OWE Japan was a very interesting thing that could have gone one way or another. And I believe we've said this on the show before. If not, I think enough distance has passed to where we feel comfortable saying it.
We can talk about that.
But the first OWE Japan show, which was, I believe, December 30th, 2019, was supposed to have Kenny Omega on it, and there was reason to believe that the Young Bucks at one point were also booked for that show, and obviously that doesn't happen. And a show with Omega alone, but also with the Bucks, the idea of OWE probably just isn't going to work out. Just logistically, there's too many things going wrong with it. But OWE Japan could have had a longer life and stronger legs had the debut show happened differently, had those guys shown up.
Yeah. No, I mean, because I think it did below 1,000, that Korakuen show, but I think I'm not exaggerating if you said Kenny Omega's first match back in Japan, or first match back in Tokyo happening there, and then the Young Bucks' first match in Japan since leaving New Japan, but like going the Elite versus Strong Hearts up top, that would have sold out Korakuen. And I think that, I don't know necessarily if that would have extended the lifespan of OWE, because the money was not going back to OWE from those shows, but OWE Japan as a presence would have existed much longer, and it wouldn't have shifted straight into Strong Hearts and then Strong Hearts jumping to Elite, in my opinion, if that happened.
And on that show, they ended up with Takashita as one of the special guests, and he wrestled T-Hawk in a singles match. And I don't know this for sure. I never saw any of the booking plans, but you would have to think that Omega versus T-Hawk was going to be in that spot. And then they ended up with the strong BJ team, Sekimoto and Okabayashi, as special guests as well, and they were in the main event. So it's to steal another term from Bill Simmons, I took the body language doctor from him earlier, but it's a sliding glass doors moment of what could have been had you had Omega on these shows. Because from everything that was said publicly, the fact that Omega did a Singapore tour with Strong Hearts, there's reason to believe that Omega believed in this product, but again, logistical issues in China and then getting these guys out of China proved to be too much.
Yeah, he showed up at, because before they had the Korakuen Hall show, they had a couple shows in Fukuoka and at Shinjuku Face. He showed up to one of them. Kenny Omega was being built up there. That's not conjecture, that's not scoops, that's what was happening. And he was really involved with it. And the one last thing I think really to say about OWE is OWE did not fail because of OWE, in my opinion. OWE was never going, now I think with hindsight, the deck was stacked against OWE ever really becoming something more than OWE Japan. And just made various different things throughout its short time period made it near impossible for OWE to be what OWE wanted to be. And it was not anything that OWE did. It just was a reality situation.
It will go down as one of my favorite what could have beens in wrestling history, and I think that is the proper legacy of OWE.
Yeah, and I think that's it for us this week, Case. Unless you had anything else, I'm looking right now. Case did a great run sheet for this week's episode because he knew that I am way too scattered at this point of my life, so we did this there. I think we covered anything. Was there anything else you want to hit on before we got out of here?
That's got to be it. I can't imagine there's anything we didn't talk about.
Yep, that's going to do it. As we mentioned before, they will be back on the network this weekend with 3 shows from across Fukuoka. We have 1 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. A lot of Rikyū Dragon participation on there because next week we are going to Okinawa live, Case. And that will be really fun things to watch on the lead up to Kobe World.
Gotta wonder if Yamato's going to make it to Okinawa or not.
I mean, I would be looking over his shoulder if I was him at Gurkha Mask. Because we know at this point that Yamato is the person that picks up the bill at the end of the night. And maybe, Gurkha Mask was using him to get the promotion. Maybe he was.
Good stuff. I love it. I'm looking forward to those Okinawa shows.
Me too. But that's going to do it for this week. You can follow us on Twitter at OpenVoiceGate. Case is _in your case. I'm at Fujiheya. Thanks for listening to Open VoiceGate. We'll be back to you next week talking about the triple header in Fukuoka. Take care, everyone.